Chapter 37. New Appointment. The relentless pace of the war and the increasing complexity of their operations had made it evident that the Space Lords required a more defined leadership structure. Recognizing the need for unity and strategic direction, the Sirens of Tenebris convened a council of the Space Lords commanders to address this crucial issue. In the heart of the command center on Eridani 5, the Sirens made a decisive announcement. The time has come to appoint a leader who can guide you through these tumultuous times. You need someone with vision, courage, and the ability to unify your forces, one of the Sirens proclaimed. After a moment of contemplative silence, another Siren announced, "We have observed the progression of this war and the roles each of you have played," declared one of the Sirens, their voice resonating with authority. "Cora has demonstrated exceptional leadership and has upheld the principles that define us as Space Lords. Therefore, we appoint her as the Galactic Warden of the Space Lords, the guiding star of our rebellion." The title Galactic Warden carried with it not only a sense of authority, but also a symbolic connection to the cosmos they fought to protect. It was a fitting title for Cora, whose vision had become a beacon of hope for many. The announcement was met with nods of approval and murmurs of agreement from the gathered Space Lords and commanders, except for one. Rook, consumed by his thirst for vengeance, remained distant and unresponsive. His once clear vision for liberation had become clouded by a singular desire for retribution against the Draxarians. Cora, accepting her new role, addressed the assembly. "I am honored and humbled by this appointment. Our fight is not just against the Draxarians, but for the future of all beings oppressed. We will continue our mission with renewed vigor and strategy, focusing on liberating those under Draxarian control and dismantling their oppressive regime." After the meeting, Cora approached Rook, hoping to bridge the growing divide between them. "Rook, I know you have reservations, but we need to be united in our efforts. Our actions must be for the greater good, not driven by vengeance alone." Rook, his gaze distant and cold, replied abruptly, "Your strategies may work for the others, but I've seen what the Draxarians are capable of. My path is set. I will stop at nothing to see them pay for what they've done." Cora, seeing the depth of Rook's resolve, felt a pang of sorrow for her old friend. "Rook, don't let your need for revenge blind you to our true purpose. We're fighting for a cause greater than ourselves." Rook turned away, his mind set on his own course of action. "We all have our roles to play, Cora. Mine is to ensure that the Draxarians never forget the Space Lords." As Rook walked away, Cora stood watching, a sense of foreboding filling her. Rook's path of vengeance was leading him further away from the ideals they had once fought for together. The challenge of her new role as Galactic Warden was clear. She had to lead the Space Lords towards their ultimate goal of liberation while navigating the internal struggles that threatened to tear them apart. Cora, now the newly appointed Galactic Warden of the Space Lords, convened with the Sirens of Tenebris to discuss their ambitious plan to pursue Zahak in the nebula. She laid out the details of their intended assault, confident in their strategy and the opportunity to strike at the heart of the Draxarian command. However, as she finished outlining the plan, the Siren whom Lysander had playfully named Mitch interjected, his tone grave and filled with foreboding. "Galactic Warden Cora, I must caution you against this course of action. What you're describing is a trap, one that we, the Sirens of Tenebris, have encountered in our own rebellion against the Draxarians." The room fell silent, the commanders turning their attention to Mitch, sensing the importance of his words. Mitch continued, his voice a solemn echo of the past. "Many cycles ago, we were given similar information about Zahak's whereabouts. Eager to end his reign, we ventured into a nebula much like the one you're targeting." He paused, as if the memories were painful to relive. The nebula's gravity wells and time distortions proved far more treacherous than we anticipated. As we delved deeper, our ships began to lose control. The time distortions interacted unpredictably with the gravity wells, creating a chaotic environment where navigation was nearly impossible. Mitch's expression darkened. We heard the distress calls of our comrades, their voices filled with panic as their ships were torn apart, crushed by the overwhelming gravitational forces. It was a massacre. And Zahak, he was never there. It was all a diversion, a ploy to lead us into a death trap while the Drixarians launched a devastating attack on our home world. The revelation sent a wave of shock through the commanders. Cora, her mind racing, realized the gravity of the situation. Thank you, Mitch. Your insight is invaluable. We must rethink our approach. This trap, it could cost us dearly, not just in lives but in the momentum of our campaign. Commander Leonix spoke up, his voice tinged with frustration. If Zahak is using the same tactics, then we need to outsmart him. We can't afford to fall into the same trap. Varro, analytical as ever, added, we should consider a feint, make them believe we're falling for their trap, while we devise a more strategic assault. We need to be as cunning as they are. Cora nodded, her mind already formulating new plans. Agreed. We'll use this information to our advantage. Zahak thinks he can outmaneuver us, but we'll turn his tactics against him. Rook, ever the skeptic and warrior driven by vengeance, raised a valid point in the strategic meeting. How do we know this situation is the same as the Sirens faced? The Drixarians might anticipate our reliance on the Sirens' experience. For all we know, Zahak could actually be in that nebula. Cora, thoughtful and strategic, considered Rook's perspective. After a moment of contemplation, she responded, You raise an important point, Rook. We can't dismiss the possibility that Zahak might be there. To ensure we cover all our bases, we'll need a plan that accounts for both scenarios. She then outlined a two-pronged strategy. Firstly, we'll stage an assault on the nebula, or at least make it seem like we're committing to an attack. This will draw their attention and resources, keeping them focused on defending Zahak, whether he's there or not. Cora turned to Rook, acknowledging his eagerness to lead the charge. Rook, I know you'll want to head the team attacking the nebula. But remember, this could be a diversion. We need to be cautious and ready to adapt. Rook nodded, the fire of revenge in his eyes. I understand the risks. My team and I will lead the assault. We'll be ready for whatever we find. Cora stood at the central command console, ready to address the entire contingent of Space Lords through their newly enhanced psychic communication system. This technology, a marvel of siren engineering, allowed for not just the transmission of messages, but also emotions and mental images, creating an almost instantaneous and deeply connected network among the Space Lords. As she initiated the communication, a wave of focused attention swept through the ranks of the Space Lords, their minds linking in a unified web of consciousness. Space Lords, this is Galactic Warden Cora, she began, her voice resonating within the minds of her comrades. The upcoming mission to the nebula is fraught with danger. The gravity waves and time distortions present a significant risk, and there's a high probability that this is a trap set by the Zahak and the Drixarians. A brief pause followed her words, the gravity of the situation settling in the minds of her listeners. She continued, Despite the risks, we need volunteers for this mission. There was a moment of hesitation, the Space Lords weighing the dangers against their duty. But when Cora added, Rook will be leading the assault, a surge of responses erupted. Nearly a quarter of the Space Lords shouted out, their voices echoing in the physical and psychic realms, For the fallen we strike. Cora, sensing the wave of devout emotions and the underlying current of vengeance, carefully filtered out her own emotions from the psychic link. She could feel the eagerness of many to follow Rook, driven by a shared desire for retribution. Thank you, she continued, her voice steady and commanding in the minds of the Space Lords. Your bravery and commitment honor us all. Turning her attention to the next phase of the plan, Cora assigned two of her most trusted commanders to a critical task. Nakia and Lysander, you will lead the scout ship to the Earth system. Your mission is to observe and report any Drixarian movements. We must be vigilant. If the nebula is indeed a trap, It's likely that the Drixarians will attempt an offensive against Earth, mirroring the tactic they used against the Sirens' homeworld. Nakia and Lysander acknowledged their orders, understanding the importance of their role. "We'll be your eyes and ears," Nakia responded through the psychic link, her motivation clear. "Any sign of a Drixarian move against Earth, and we'll alert you immediately." Lysander added, "We'll ensure that the scout mission is carried out with precision. You can count on us, Galactic Warden Cora." She elaborated on the role of the scout ship. If our scouts detect any movement towards Earth, they will immediately notify us and Rook. That will be our signal to abort the Nebula mission and redirect our forces to defend Earth. The plan was met with nods of approval from the commanders. It was a balanced approach, blending offense with caution, ensuring they were prepared for multiple outcomes. Leonic spoke up. "We'll need to coordinate our forces carefully, ensure seamless communication between the teams." Varro added, "And timing will be critical. We must synchronize our actions to maintain the element of surprise." Cora concluded the meeting. "This is a complex operation, but we have the skills and the resources to execute it. Let's proceed with caution and stay vigilant. We're not just fighting for victory, we're fighting for the future of our homeworld."